Hey students, welcome to Learn Digital. Today we are going to discuss constructor in object-oriented programming, one of the important concept in object-oriented programming and important feature. What is constructor? The name itself suggesting that we are going to construct something. What we are going to construct with this constructor. So first of all, you understand constructor is a function. So function means in a class we have a data member and member function. In any class A, so if A is a class, so we have a data member, we have function. Data member suppose integer A, and member function suppose add, we have get data. Suppose these are the functions we have, so data member and member function. So in that case, constructor is a function which will be placed here. A constructor is a function, and this will do a special type of task. And What is a special type of task? It will initialize the object when the object will be created in the main section, main function of the program. At that time, what we do actually, we write like that main, and we create a ob1. Suppose ob1 is the object. So we create object of class A, and this will create a object in the memory. This is our memory. Suppose this is our RAM, primary memory, and we are creating object ob1, which is having an address plus 200 is the starting address. So in this case, this is the data member integer A. So for A there will be a space. So in this case, the constructor will do initialization of the object, means it will initialize the value of A here when it will be invoked. It will initialize with a random value, means any random and garbage value of A. So in this case, this is our object 1 which is created. So when the object constructor will be called, suppose we are having function add, get data, display, those functions we invoke like that, ob1 dot get, ob1 dot add, like that. But in this case we are not calling the function constructor, which is actually part of the this one, the function, part of the function section of any class. But it is called implicitly, it is called when the object is created, when we write like this line, and this in this at this point the constructor is called. And how the constructor will be defined, then the constructor will be defined in the class like that. If the name of the class is A, the constructor will be defined like that, A, because it is a function. This is the structure of how we define function, first bracket and the closing first bracket, and name of the function, name of the constructor will be as as same as the class name. So the class name is A, the function name means the constructor name will be A. That's why we call it a constructor is a special function of a class. Special because the name of the constructor is as same as the class name, and the constructor is not called explicitly with the object name. When we create the object, automatically the constructor will be called, and the purpose of calling the constructor, the purpose of creating the object or constructor is initialization of the object. When the object is created, the constructor actually initializes with the value. So if we want to put any explicit value for the A when the object will be created and the constructor will be called, then we can write like that, A equal to 0, means this A will be having a 0 value when this object will be created. In our earlier program, we created object, but we did not define any constructor inside the class. At that time, constructor was called. We did not know, but constructor was called. That constructor was there in the compiler, because the compiler holds a default constructor, means already a constructor is there inside the compiler. That the purpose of the compiler is to initialize the object, but no value is no specific value was there inside the compiler definition for the data members, but random values or garbage value will be assigned to the data member. So in our earlier case, when we created object, at that time also the constructor was called from the compiler, and there with the class name the constructor was defined like that. No definition was there inside, but this constructor is called default constructor. Default constructor means no argument will be sent or no argument will be there in the definition of the constructor. This is called a default constructor. The definition of a default constructor is like that. So let us write a program when we will create our own constructor in the program. Suppose the same program I just explained, class A, and this is the program. Integer A is the data member, and um, we have a constructor. The constructor will be like that: A equal to 0, and our program is over. Suppose we have no other functions. So for the time being we are creating a class, very simple. So why do we define the constructor in the public section? Because uh, if we do not define the constructor in the public section, it cannot be called in the main section when the object will be created. That's why it is in the public section. If we create in the private section, the constructor will never be called. So this is the fundamental characteristic of a constructor. Will be in the public section. If you have any query regarding this private and public, go to the previous lectures in the function in the class and object in details. In that video I discussed everything. So this is the constructor. So in the main, what do we do actually? Main, we create object of class A. This is the class A, and we are creating object ob1. So ob, when we write like that, it automatically calls this constructor because it is already there in the program. If there will be any constructor in our program, like other examples we did in our earlier programs, at that time it would call the compiler constructor. Same, there would not be any argument. So here see, this constructor is automatically being called when the object is created, and this is executing, and it is setting a 0 when object ob1 is created. So ob1 in the memory is created, and a will be initialized to 0. So this is the fundamental purpose of creating a constructor, means to initialize. If there are many other data members, you can initialize those here. So what is the advantage of initializing the data members here? We could have used other functions to do that. Yes, previously we did with our in our examples that we can create a function, suppose input or get data. In that we could have initialized or could have get the first value set of values inside the data members. But in the earlier case, we called every function or those functions at the beginning, like ob1 dot input, explicitly. After creating the object, we used to call. But in this case, if you have the constructor defined, no need to write like this line, because you are implicitly calling the constructor which is already defined. This is the advantage. You no need to call like this initializing function, and no need to create that function again. If you have multiple objects, for multiple objects you need to call input function, input function, input function, just to initialize those objects. So here, if you have a constructor like that, every value need to be 0 at uh, that time you just create an constructor, and you just create the objects automatically. Call will be made. No, you no need to call like that. So this is the advantage. So this is called default constructor. Default constructor. And there is another type of constructor is called parameterized constructor. Parameterized constructor. Parameterized constructor. And there is another type of constructor is called copy constructor. So we'll discuss one after another. Default constructor I already discussed. Then when you have a program when you have a class, you define a constructor like that when there is no argument inside the constructor, and you are initializing with any default values you are explicitly mentioning, a equal to 0, like that. And if you are having a constructor like that, in this side I am writing a, and it is integer x, This is the definition, means it is taking integer value, and here you are writing a equal to x. In this case you are having one parameter or argument, and see, in the main, this is the class a, clearly I'm writing, and this is constructor integer a, and this is the public section. I'm writing a, and here integer x. Sorry, this will not be, there will be no semicolon. So here a is equal to x, means the value of x will be initialized to will be assigned to a. So what will be the value of x here? We'll be giving that, we'll be just providing that the value of x. So here in main, see, we call a ob1, and with that we put 2. So means while creating the object we are just sending some argument, and means this version of compiler will be matched. See, because this is one argument, it is receiving one argument and we are sending one argument, so this will match, and this will be executed. So we get the value of x as 2. So 2 means the value of a will be 2, so ob1 will be initialized a equal to 2 if we want. So this is called parameterized constructor, and that is default constructor. So a very important concept here, if you have a constructor, I already discussed that, if you have a constructor uh, class a, if you have a constructor like that, integer x equal to x, then it is a parameterized constructor. So when you create object in your program main a ob1 and you are putting 2, up to this it is okay and it will call this. But in the second line, if you try to create object ob2 and no argument you are passing, so at that time default constructor should have been called from the compiler, because no default constructor is there in your program. But if you started defining, the constructor in your program, so explicitly you have to provide a default constructor in your program, otherwise your program will be error. So this now will call no argument, only this is the semicolon. So this will invoke this. You don't expect that if you write like that and you do not have a default constructor in your program, because you are not sending any arguments, you are expecting to call a default constructor. So if your program is not holding any default constructor, at that time it is an error. But you are not having any constructor in your program, at that time this will work. When you are already having a constructor, so with this you must have a default constructor, default constructor, you must have default constructor. So with the parameterized constructor you must have default constructor. With copy constructor you must have one default constructor, means which will receive no argument. So this is another important and crucial fact about the constructor just discussed. So another type is copy constructor. Copy constructor, name itself suggesting that, see, the understanding, you just understand the concept first. Class, every time I say that everything you need to understand, any concept you want to understand, always go for the problem, why that concept was required. Once you discuss the problem, at that time you are asking for a solution, and that solution is actually the concept. So you can understand anything with this process. Otherwise, if you directly go for the concept, cannot remember the concept for a long time. It will be like a copy paste kind of thing. In your memory it will be just copied. But if you really want to understand, you want to apply your brain, then you always go for the problem, and any concept is actually a solution for that problem. So first, this is the way you should learn, and I just realized that this is the only method. In my time, I did not expect. So eventually, I tried. I tried to know that what is the actual fundamental of learning. Only by going to the book, only by going through the concepts will not work. Always try to find out the problem. What are the different problems, and go for the solution. The solution is the concept. So no need to give extra effort to understand the concept. So likewise, copy constructor, the name copy. So why do we do copy here? So see, this is your class integer a. Here a is the this one, a is the data member of this class A, and eventually we'll define that main. In the main you are creating a class called object called O1. So O1 is O1 uh, suppose this is 2, means you are initialize sorry, it will not be here like that. It's a simple data member. It's a simple data member here. This is your 2. You are sending 2 with this O1, means you want to initialize O1 with 2, means A will be having 2 when you create an object. So we are creating an object of class A, O1, and O1A will be 2. How did you initialize? Where is the constructor? Constructor is here. A integer x, like what we did in our previous case, and it is a equal to x, and this is called parameterized constructor. There is no doubt our program is up to this, it is okay. So here we want to create another object O2, and in this case you actually initialize O2 with the value of O1, means you want to copy O1 in the O2. This is the task of copy constructor. Copy constructor will copy the value of the data member to the newly created object, and from the existing object, means initialization of the new object with the data value of the existing object is the purpose of copy constructor. So see, I came to a point where copy is required and copy constructor is doing that. So we understood the purpose of copy constructor here. So these are the three types of constructor. So how to do in programming, we'll see that very quickly. See, this is the book, object-oriented programming with Balaguru Sami. So you go through the text, and this will give you all the information what I already discussed. So in details you will get it if you require. So these are the topics: constructor, default constructor, parameterized constructor, copy constructor. So the fundamental things I already discussed. What is constructor? Is a special member function. The name of the constructor is the same as the class name. See, this is the integer in their example. Class name is an integer, so for object name will be integer. It is in the public section because this need to be invoked from the public section or the main outside the class. Here, this is the initialization of a new object. At that time, the default constructor will be called, and here they have the default constructor where no argument is there. Void means no argument, and you will be confused why the constructor definition is outside. We already discussed that any function can be defined outside the class, but you need to use scope resolution operator in this case, and it is already discussed in my previous videos. So let us go further, and this is the characteristic of constructor. Constructor should be in the public section. It should not be virtual. What is virtual function? We will discuss later. It can be overloaded, means multiple versions of constructor can be there in your program. See, we already discussed this in our program, that one is parameterized, another is default, because once you have a constructor in your program, you must have the default constructor uh, if you want to invoke the default constructor. So you can overload, means multiple version of this constructor you may have in your class definition. This is called constructor overloading, like function overloading. We already discussed function overloading. Go to that function overloading section, you will understand better. So as I started telling that this series of lectures are actually talking about the same concept, object-oriented programming. Our fundamental objective is to understand the different concept of object-oriented programming, and that started from the first lecture, and first sentences. So if you go to the first section, first video, and start watching that up to this, and you will understand everything. It's not like a discrete lectures I have recorded. You can start from any point. It will be better if you start from the beginning, because the entire discussion is one discussion, and because I cannot discuss everything in one video, it will be a 10-hour 20-hour video. So it will be better if I divide those videos in multiple fragments. So this is the only purpose of having multiple videos. So understand that is one discussion, and you will understand very nice if you start from the beginning. So let us go further. We have parameterized constructor. We already discussed that constructor having arguments. In our case, we had a class and we had integer x. Here they are having two arguments because they are having two data members in their class definition. So any point you are facing problem understanding any video means you did not go through the earlier videos very well. And if you have any problem at any point of time, in the comment section you can write. I will definitely answer those things in the video form, definitely. And I will be creating short video or clip for those problems. So it is very necessary. If you really want to understand, you put your effort and time, you will definitely understand. And I am there for you to just complete all the doubts clear. So this is their definition. This is a parameterized constructor. You will understand. So while invoking the constructor, see, they just call the constructor like that. This is one method of calling the constructor. See, this is the usual way. Integer one is the constructor object and equal to integer. This is the data type, means in our case this is the class name and bracket. So you just memorize this thing, how to create object with parameters. And this is the way implicitly you are calling the you are just creating the object. So what I applied in my program. So this explicit call and implicit call of constructor. So this is thing. They are giving examples, no problem. So we have another concept of copy constructor. We are coming to the point, copy constructor. Here however, a constructor can accept a reference to its own class as a parameter. Okay, I will discuss it. This is multiple constructor in a class, means constructor overloading, you can say. It comes in the exam, constructor overloading. Even we'll give one example. Having multiple constructors. See, this is a default constructor having no argument, and this is a constructor having two arguments, and they are explicitly defined in the class definition in the public section. This is the default constructor having no arguments and explicitly given default values, and this is the constructor having a and b, integer a and integer b arguments, and this is integer reference I. It is referring, so three constructors are given in a single class, means we are having multiple versions of the constructor overloading. So this way we go further, and this is the point we want to copy, initialize I2 from I1. I2 from I1. I1 is the constructor, and this is the I2. I2 is initializing this, and what is I3? I3 is actually copying the value of I2, and this is called copy constructor. See this one. So this is the example of copy constructor. So constructor overloading, I already discussed. They are giving a complete example. So I already discussed that for your understanding, you just go through those examples, but you have your own version of examples for the concepts. And when I will start writing programs, I will show you that every concept will be associated with a simple program, not the thing given in the book, because they are having a standard and complete set of program, or three things together, four things together in a program. So this will make you confused. So I will suggest you always understand a concept with a very simple and very clean example. So constructor with default arguments. Default arguments means while creating the constructor you are setting some values, not receiving anything, and but you are having arguments. So this is called default constructor, dynamic initialization of an object. uh, Copy constructor. See, integer reference I. This is the syntax of the constructor prototype, and when you define it, you take the value of value of I, means the reference variable, and you will initialize the I2 with I1, and this will be the way you'll be calling the constructor. See, automatically the constructor will be called, and the value of I1 will be initialized. So there is a program. I hope there is a program. Yes. uh, this is the code is the class name. So code ampersand of x. So code is the type, not integer character float. The class itself is a type here, means because we are dealing with the object, because object will be sent. What object will be sent when you create a second object, means o2, in that case. So you are just sending the o1 as an object. O1 is object, and the value of O1 will be initialized in the O2. So when we do program of copy constructor, it will be clear. For the time being, I'm just discussing the concept, because I need to cover the concept very fast so that I can go to the programming section. So together I'm not doing programming and concept, because it will make the video very large, very long. So I'm keeping the programming section later, and I need to cover the concept first, because of the uh, because there are many issues need to be tackled. Students must students must get an idea about the object-oriented programming subject, because they have to go for the exam, everything. So this is called constructor. I will discuss the destructor in the second video. Thank you. If you have any query, go to the comment section and write your query. So if you do need any further next videos, the notification on videos, just hit the subscribe button, and uh, just hit the bell icon for further notifications. Thank you.